Welcome, everybody. I'm glad to be with you guys today and spend, I guess, about 45 minutes or so going over some new manufacturing features and workflows that really do change the way we do our jobs. I want to start off today by just quickly going over my agenda. I'm going to try to stick to this, but we're going to start off with this introduction to these new features and how they greatly affect the things that we do. We're going to spend some time, I hope the majority of our time, looking at some Inventor features that are relatively new and have had a drastic impact on the way I do my day-to-day work inside of that tool. We're also going to look at Fusion. We'll focus for a little bit on some of the AI stuff. I just got finished, one of the last webinars I did was going over all of the AI tools in Fusion, and you're more than welcome to take that deep dive and look at that other webinar. But we're also going to focus on how these emerging AI capabilities are changing the way we do the things that we do, our design and our making strategy. And then we'll finish up taking a few minutes and just looking at a way or ways that you can stay competitive in this rapidly changing manufacturing landscape. And what do you got to do to keep up with all of this new technology? Every time you turn around, there's something new that we want to focus on. So just a little bit about me. I am Rusty Belcher. I'm a manufacturing application expert. I primarily work with the manufacturing tools from Autodesk, and that includes Inventor and now Fusion and factory design utilities and all of the stuff usually in the product design manufacturing collection. That's where I spend most of my time helping customers get used to using those tools and making those tools do what the customers need them to do. Now, that being said, I'm going to get started with my presentation. I started on this one. I kind of struggled whether I was going to do this or not, but I am an old Inventor user, all right? You can call me an old fart Inventor user. I just am. I made the card this morning. I made that before for the presentation. And I actually had to go back in my mind and back on the internet. Inventor came out in 1999, actually 2000. I think the time I looked at it was 2000 for the first time, and I've been using it ever since. So I am one of those old Inventor users, and I think I'm kind of old at this point in my life, and I identify a lot with the people that have been using Inventor for quite a while. And you just you haven't embraced change very much, right? We're going to talk about some new features today, and more I find it harder and harder to adapt to new features, right? I just have muscle memory or reflex. I'm just used to doing it a certain way, and I don't appreciate those new features. Or I run into people all the time where change is hard, and there's a natural resistance to change. I have to force myself to keep up with all the new stuff in the new releases. I have to force myself to do that. A lot of people don't have time to do that. They don't have time because they got work to do. So they haven't had a chance to look at all the new features that have been introduced in Inventor for a while. And I hear this a lot. I'm an old dog. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. I hear that all the time, and that's not true. I've got some amazing folks I work with that are older than I am, and they adopt new technology like it's nothing. So at the end, yes, I've said this before. I'm old at this point. Get off my lawn. Don't bother me with all the new stuff. But listen, if that's you, okay, first off, you're in the right place. All right, I get it, and I appreciate it. But it might be time to think about some Inventor update training. And that kind of leads me into the next bit of this, is that, hey, your next update training class, it very well might involve other tools than Inventor, but adding some other tools to the mix. So I'm going to start off here. Actually, let me back up a little bit. I'm going to start off by telling you what I've been working on for the past almost 6 months. It seems like 6 months to me. I have a customer, I'm in the middle of a big project with them, and they are moving from Inventor 2021 to Inventor 2024. and they needed some update training. And I don't know about you, but I think Inventor hasn't changed much over the past few years. Well, when I went and looked, I was amazed at how much Inventor has actually changed. I'm going to drag over, this is a mind map, so kind of bear with me, but this is how I keep my notes these days, talking about investing in new technology. So when I started to look at this project, it was just 2021 to 2024. But then I had another customer come in and said, no, they needed to go to 2025. So what you're seeing is my collection of new features that I needed to share with new clients. And I had a rule, but I wasn't going to share with them every single feature. Believe it or not, that's just way too much. There's no way I can share all the stuff that comes out each release. But I wanted to focus on the day-to-day use. All right, if it impacts your day-to-day use, I want to cover it. If it's a change to a very basic command that everyone uses, I want to cover it. If it's a major change to a basic command, you got to cover that. But I call these, if it's worthy of upgrading, I call them marquee features. All right, and I'm going to share with you what I think the marquee features are in just a minute. But if it's worthy of an upgrade, then yeah, you got to share that one. Each release has that marquee feature that it's known for. But also features that extend the reach and versatility and functionality of Inventor. Wanted to share those. Are features that greatly impact our existing workflows, and that's really what we're here today to talk about. Or features that introduce brand new workflows. So I mentioned the fact that I started with 2021 and I went in and did that. And then I looked at 2022. I'll pan over here just a little bit more. And then I'm going to start backing out here because it just got crazy. It just, the more I looked, the more I saw really how much Autodesk is still investing in updating Inventor and making it viable for us to utilize. So I'm still working on 2026, and I know 2027 is coming out in a few months. So this is a very difficult thing. But listen, your next update training class might not be to a specific version. If you're looking at update training, you might want to just look at, hey, show me what's new in the last few releases and let me get caught up with all of that. All right, so I'm going to hop back in over here into PowerPoint, and I want to start talking about those marquee features, right? Features that really do change the way we work. And we're going to start by looking at Inventor and how it does that. So I think for the past several releases, the marquee features, I think most of you know them. Like in 2022, they introduced model states, and that really did change a lot. Model states are amazing. In 2022, though, there was one of my most favorite features. The apply command started to get introduced to a lot of the feature dialog boxes. Talk about that in a minute. 2023, that was the mark tool, and etching. Etching became features that we could include in our parts. 2024 introduced finish. So I could actually have a feature for powder coating my parts and painting them or polishing them. That feature would actually show up in the hierarchy of the model. 2025 really did focus on sheet metal enhancements and redoing the sheet metal interface. 2023 to 2026, all right, one of the major ones in 2026, I think, or 2025 and 2026, is the enhancements to the bill of material functionality. 2025 introduced a lot of pattern enhancements, and 2026 was, you'll see in a minute, zones and things like the open and save dialog box got changed. But those were the big major features over the past several years, and I would call all of these features modern features that have been introduced somewhat lately. Now, I also want to focus today, and I want to get over into Inventor, and I want to share with you some of my favorite new features. And these are very simple things. They're not groundbreaking, not like model states was. And it's amazing. Sometimes the simplest change has the biggest impact on what we do. So I want to share with you some of my more favorite ones. And if you didn't know these, again, maybe it's time to think about looking at some update training time. So I'm going to hop over here to my Inventor application. And the first thing I'm going to show, it's a very simple one, but the first thing I'm going to mention is a very simple thing. It's a way to toggle the visibility off of certain objects. This is one of the exercises I developed for my update training class. So it's got some instructions here on the screen, so don't worry about that. But you ever open up a file and you had sketches visible? Someone had left a sketch visible or a work feature visible? Or maybe you just wanted to turn the visibility off of a certain body. Well, all right. So, normally you'd go over here to the browser, and I love this about Autodesk. I just do. Here's a sketch that's visible. And usually we used to right click on this, all right, and select visibility. And it's funny if I zoom in here for a minute. For ages, they've been telling us that the hotkey for visibility is Alt-V. But honestly, you had to be in this menu to actually use the Alt-V hotkey. Well, I can't remember. It's 2023. I think they fixed that. So now I can simply select the sketch and click Alt-V, and it disappears. I love that. That saves me 2 or 3 clicks right there. So there's sketch 5. I can get rid of that. It works for work planes, so I can click those. Do a little keyboard shortcut, get rid of those work planes. And it also works for selected bodies. If I go through and start selecting my bodies, I can just quickly go through and turn those off and on, so I can turn them back on very easily with that little keyboard shortcut. So Alt-V. I will say, between you and I and friends here, it's not the most comfortable keyboard shortcut, but it's a good one to know. And again, think about me being an AutoCAD or an Inventor old fart guy. I'm fighting muscle memory on that because I'm so used to right-clicking and doing it. But incorporating that little Alt-V trick, that could save me steps every time I think about the visibility of objects. All right, we're going to get out of this file. Let me get into another one here. I wanted to talk about another feature that I dearly love, and that's the fact that they've added apply to many of the feature dialogues in Inventor, like extrude and revolve and sweep and coil, and I think it's in loft as well. But here, I want to focus on this, and again, I want to focus on the fact that a simple change can drastically affect the way I work. So this is a simple little sketch here, and I want to do some extrusions real quick, and I want to show you the classic way first. So if I start my extrude command, I would draw a sketch. I've got that already done, and I'd set up the extrusion, and I want to extrude this to be 6 inches. So we'll drag down here to 6 inches. There we go. And normally, if you would do a shared sketch methodology here. So I would, normally, classically, I'm used to this. I'd click OK. Then I'd go to the browser, and you'd find the sketch, and you'd right-click and share the sketch. And then you'd have to start the extrude command again, and you would go through and create that feature. And you'd click OK. And then you got to go over to the browser and turn the visibility off of the shared sketch. And we've been working, and many of us have been working that way for 26 years at this point. So there is a bit of muscle memory and reflex here. But now let me undo real quick. Let me get back to where I was when I started here. Let's do it the modern way. And I love this. It's such a simple change. You click extrude. We select our first profile. We'll drag it out to the 6 inches. And we want to click apply. It's such a simple thing, but the dialog stays open. Then I can select a second profile, drag that back in, and I click OK. Now watch, I love this too. The sketch turns off, and I end up in the browser with the same shared sketch methodology that I would have ended up with before. I love that. The sketch is still shared. So it just changes the way I model. It's a fundamental change, and I hope you have discovered this already. If not, this is something I really do think most of us should be working into our daily lives. Here's revolve. So just to make the point that this apply button is on almost all the features now. I'm going to go through and run a revolve on this. So we'll click revolve. Click OK. Cancel that. What did I do wrong there? Oh, I know why. Sorry. Revolve. We'll select our profiles. I got the wrong profile at the top there. I want to just get that one. All right. So my first revolve, I'll click apply. All right. My second revolve, I'll set up the axis for that. Make sure I'm on the right spot there. You click apply. Sketch is still visible. I do my last revolve. This time I'll select that axis right there, and we'll just make it 180. How about that? We'll click OK, and there we go. And I end up again with a shared sketch, but it feels like I never had to leave the dialog box. It was just one feature after another, and we're ready to go. So that's one that I hope all of you start to look for. Look for that little green plus sign and the apply option. It's very dominant at this point, almost in every model feature. Look for the apply option and force yourself to start using those things. Got another one. Again, I tried to keep these as simple as I could here, but I didn't want to open up a 500 part assembly and pick one part and then do something simple. So I want you to focus on the simplicity of these things, not necessarily the way I'm presenting them. But here we go. I'm going to sketch on the side face of this part. And I want to talk about something as simple as copy paste. All right. This one bothered me for a long time. And I think many of you know where I'm going with this. But if I draw a circle, right, I want to draw here, I'm just going to copy paste it. So I'm going to select it. Good old Control C. How many of you love the idea that when you Control V, it pastes at the cursor? I love that. And finally, that works. That's not necessarily what I'm here to talk about. But I remember when that came out, and I knew I could start using copy paste like a normal person inside of Inventor. But I want to talk about constraints. All right, a little bit about constraints. So the goal here is to, get a rectangular grid of these circles. And, I think many of us are used to going up. I'm going to do my vertical constraint first. So you get the vertical constraint, and I'll click this one and this one. I'll do the vertical constraint. I'll get these two circles set up. That looks good. Now I want the horizontal constraint. Well, now I'd have to go up. Classically, I'd go up and click the horizontal constraint tool and keep going. But in modern Inventor, you hold the Shift button down now. And it's hard to see on the screen, but if I hold the Shift button, I'm in horizontal. So I could just go ahead and do the horizontal constraint. And again, that one is such a good feature to have in your back pocket. It really is. While I'm here, this exercise is about pasting with formulas. And it's not necessarily one of my favorites, but I'm here. Might as well talk about it. So pasting with formulas. If I go up here and you have to create a user parameter for this to work. So I'm going to create a user parameter called diameter. I'm just going to go DIA, and I'm going to set this to 1/2 inch, so 0.5. All right. Got a user parameter there. I'm going to select done. I'm going to select this circle. I'm going to add a dimension, so we'll just add a dimension there, and we're going to type in DIA. I think many of you guys have done that. And of course, that first dimension scales the sketch. So That's why all of those circles updated at the same time, all right? It wasn't because they were parametrically aligned with each other. You know, for instance, if I were to go change that parameter to 1, only one circle is going to change, right? Now, you guys know how to fix that, right? You know, you could go in and add an equal constraint. Probably the easiest way to do that would be to do that. So very straightforward, very basic stuff, right? But what is pasting with formulas? So I'm going to copy, hit Control C. Now watch this. I'm going to finish my sketch and I'm going to start a new sketch. And I'm just going to paste, but this time I'm going to paste with formulas. So what's the difference? All right, so if I were to go back to the parameter table and I change that back to 0.5, you'll notice that both circles update. Even the pasted one updated. And I think that's amazing. I didn't have to go through and reset the parameter on a separate sketch. I actually looked earlier today. I'm like, are you sure about this? And I was in the sketch. So I'm in this sketch. Let me orbit a little bit. And I'm like, I really can't do an equal constraint to another from another sketch to this sketch. You can't do that. So this gives me a way to share that parameter simply through a copy paste. And I thought that was pretty good. The main point, though, the one that I love is the horizontal vertical constraint toggle. Where has that been my whole life? All right, that's a common thread in a lot of these features I'm going to share with you. So let me close this out. I've got another general favorite feature. And this is one, I really can't point to a release as to when they started this. I think around 2023 to now, they have been overhauling the text editor in Inventor. And specifically, they've made it more accessible to things like your part parameters, your feature properties, things like model state names. If you can make it in Inventor, there's a good chance the text editor can go in and get the data and display it on your part, so that if you make a change to the model, your text on your part or on your drawing would update automatically. This is a big deal, how integral text has become to the 3D environment and the 2D environment. So in this example, I've got a part here with a sketch on it. I'm going to go into the sketch, and I've got here part number, material length, width, thickness, customer. All right, these are all either parameters I'm tracking or I properties in the part that I want to parametrically control. So if I double click the text, get the text editor, and this is where I think all the magic is happening, and it's actually happening right here in the type panel. All right, this gives me access to my model parameters, things like finish. All right, I can get into the finish parameters, user parameters, I properties, custom I properties. All of this is now available to me. So for instance, part number. Well, that's just a standard I property, right? We all know that one. So I can come down and grab my part number and I can get that into the text editor. You want to call that an attribute or a field. If you're an AutoCAD guy, I've been teaching AutoCAD for the past week. So, you know, very similar functionality. Material, that's another I property. You can come grab that and add that. You can see it's actually happening out here as I do. Length is a parameter. Well, I can go in and get my parameters from the model, and I can grab length. I could have also grabbed that from the custom I property area, but there's width. Let's get that in there. And let's get in here. What's the last one? Thickness. Thickness is in here. I'll add that. The customer, that's a custom I property that I'm tracking. So I've got my custom I properties. There's customer. I can add that down there. So if I click OK, now I've got parametric text. So let's finish this. Let's use it for something. How about marking it? Etching. I mentioned etching. That was a marquee feature, I think, for 2024 4, I think. So, now I have etching, so I can go in and etch this right onto the part, and that's parametric etching. If the part changes, the etching will update. That's amazing. But let's make a change. Let's change the material type. So let's come in and grab some, we'll just make it steel carbon. And you'll notice the material, after it cycles through, now says steel carbon. Or let's go in and make a parametric change to length. Let's make it how about 3.25. I'll hit enter. Takes a second. Etching doesn't update very fast, but there you go. Now I got 3.25 for my length of the part. So having the parametric text really does, if you are like on a sheet metal setup and you're etching the customer information, the purchase order, part numbers onto the sheet metal part, well, first off, you can do that now, and it's all parametric. Makes your life a lot easier. New opportunities start to come out when you take this and apply it to your manufacturing processes. All right, I got one more, and this is a 2026 one, and this one probably wins the award for me anyway. In the about dang time we got this. So I'm going to open up a part, and I'm going to do a simple drawing. For this example, I want you to notice I am using 2026, and I am using the standard out-of-the-box 2026 drawing template. So if you're using your old drawing templates, if you've been migrating your old templates forward, or just maybe you haven't been migrating them, this might make you rethink. You might need to go in and change a few things with your template. So here's my drawing. All right. If I ask everybody out there, how many of you are actually using zone borders? Some of you might say, oh, we used to, but Inventor never really worked with zones very well. And we went to just a rectangular border ages ago. Well, yeah, for 26 years, I've wished when you make a view in Inventor, you can include the zone in the view. Now you can. So I'm going to do a base view. It's a simple part. The part doesn't really matter here, but the view does. So this is my base part for the screw jack. And I want to turn on my view identifier, and I want to go back into the text editor. So we've got access to the text editor now. That's a relatively new feature. But the thing that 2026 introduces, so right beside the view identifier, I'm going to put a dash and a space. But I go over here on the text property dropdown, and I've got view label properties. You can explore these. There are plenty of them here for the parent sheet information and the view information. And I'm simply going to pick the view sheet zone. Love that. I'm going to add it. I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to click OK again. Now, of course, you could do that in your template so that that's automatic if you want your zones to appear. And I know I'm not really standard here in the way I'm doing this, but so see, this is base view C6. So if I look, I'm under C, or I'm near 6, and you got to try it, right? You just have to. You got to move it around. So I'll move it up here, and it's D8, or I move it down here, and it's B7. I think that about time we've got zones, interactive zones with our views, and it's not just the views, or it's not just the base view. What if I do a section view or a detail view? I'm going to show you a section view. So detail views would basically do the same thing. But if I were to come down and drop in a section view, and I come over here and drop this off, instead of it just being the classic AA, it still is AA, right? But now I've got, hey, for this view, you need to go to B7. And it's actually telling me, like it should, where to find the parent, what zone to look for the parent. And you can try to break it. I've tried to break it. Hey, let's see what happens if I make a new sheet. And what we'll do is we'll copy that section view, or I'm sorry, we'll move the section view to sheet 2. What happens here? Well, okay, so it says, hey, for the parent, you need to go to sheet 1, B7. It's amazing. If I go back over here, I'm sorry, if I go back over to the sheet 1, it now says you will find this at sheet 2, B6. And it's so, they did such a good job with this. Let's add out like sheet 2. That's ridiculous. So here, I would edit my sheet, and I would just rename my sheet to just S. All right. So now it should say S2. And if I go back over here, again, oh, sorry, I did that twice. Didn't mean to. If I go back over to sheet 1, sorry, go back to sheet 2, and I right click on sheet 1 and edit the sheet. I'll just change that to an S as well. And again, you could go in and do your templates now in way of zones so that it says and displays exactly how many of us old timers were taught to drop our views on a zone border. So one of my favorite new features, period, is the zone tools, and finally it working the way I thought it should have been working for years. So I hope you get a chance to explore that. Be careful about updating your old templates. Be careful about that. Don't go crazy, but start investigating this and see if it fits into your current workflows and really, again, changes the way you're doing your work or doing your job. All right, I'm going to jump out of Inventor for a minute. I want to get back over to the PowerPoint. Let's see, there we are. So I want to, certainly Fusion is a part of, it's one of our tools now. If you've got the product design manufacturing collection, you got Fusion. And I really do hope you're paying attention to it. Fusion, there's no doubt that's where a lot of the new AI stuff is coming in, and a lot of the groundbreaking changes or innovations are being introduced or debuted in that tool. So, yep, modern Inventor users, I got both feet in Inventor and I got another foot in Fusion. You have to keep up with what that tool is doing and the things that it's offering. Many people, they run their CNC through Fusion. They model in Inventor, but the CNC and all of that, that's a Fusion process. But we really want to focus on it for a few minutes. And I did a webinar probably about 7 or 8 months ago about the AI tools that are currently in Fusion. And that whole webinar focused on these 5 main tools: generative design, automated modeling, automated toolpaths, automated drawings, and the latest one, the Sketch Auto Constraint tool. And if you're interested, I'd encourage you to go find our old webinars and look at that one if you really want to take a deeper dive into what AI can do inside of Fusion. My focus today, though, it's a Fusion-based example, and it's one that I recently ran through. And I wanted to share that with you. But I think I mentioned, CNC toolpaths and automated dimensions and generative part design. Those are all amazing tools, right? Those are all amazing things that are possible with AI. But I ran into one not long ago that really floored me, and it really did change the way I think about what's possible and how much time I really need to be spending on a certain project. So every year I generated a Christmas card. Usually I try to generate it in Inventor, but it's a 3D Christmas card, and I send it out to the people I work with at IMAGINiT. So this year, I didn't have a lot of time this year. I had a bunch of big projects in December. I was on the road a lot. So what I decided is I have a factory design utility model I use a lot. I figured I would just string lights up, and I'll put a Christmas tree up, and there'd be a cherry picker, and the guys are hanging the star. I just made a little scene. And in the midst of this, I didn't have a sign on my factory, and I just wanted to personalize it. And I wanted it to say Belcher and Sons. And I got to thinking, that's going to take me a while to draw that. And then I got to thinking, do I really have the time to do that? And I jumped over and I went to Grok. I don't know what AI tool you use. Grok is doing a lot for me these days. ChatGPT is still really good, but I like the image generation in Grok. A lot of AIs get the text wrong. They just misspell words. it's not exactly what you told them to type in. And it seems to me anyway, and it's not an advertisement for them, it just seems to me that Grok's got that down pretty good now. So I asked Grok, I said, make me a vintage sign that says Belcher and Sons in subtext underneath of that since 1965. And, you know, give me plenty of versions to choose from. And it gave me 100 versions to choose from. And I picked this one. I liked the way that it wasn't perfect. I liked the way the paint was peeling off of it. I liked that. And then in my software, right? My software, it'd be easier if this is a 3D model, and that way I could just put it into Twinmotion tool I was using to generate the video. Well, this is when I hopped into Fusion. All right, so I'm going to hop over here to Fusion, and I brought that in as a canvas. Now, again, a couple of months earlier on my YouTube feed, I was introduced to a new tool called Project Salvador. This is a beta, so if you're interested in this, trust me, go to YouTube, look up Project Salvador Fusion, and watch the video. You will be amazed like I was amazed. This is something that Autodesk, in my mind, has never done before. But so what Project Fusion is, so Project Fusion is 2 buttons. One introduces a window that you could type in a prompt and it will make an image for you. Now, I'm not going to criticize them. I'm not here to do that, but I liked Grok's image generator better than this. So I just used Grok. But check this out. It's really, really good. It is certainly, I think, qualifies as an AI tool. But the thing that got me was the second half of this. So I've got an image in Fusion, they call them canvases, right? So I got an image here and I want to trace it. You know how long it would take me to trace this in normal CAD? Watch this. I click this tool. I'm going to select the image. It takes off. And I don't know what you consider AI, all right? Artificial intelligence. I also consider things, you know, automated interactions. So takes a minute or so. All right, done. I click OK. Here, if I go in, I'm going to turn off the canvas for a minute. There's my sketch. And it's all closed. If I select extrude, I can extrude that letter B right there. And it's got all the little imperfections in it, just the way I wanted it. So I was able, if I undo, I was able to just do several extrusions. And here, I generated this 3D sign in literally less than 2 or 3 minutes. And this is far more than what I would have ever hoped would have been possible for this little project. And then I get to sample in all kinds of stuff. My grandfather, all right, he passed away a long time ago, but I still think of him all the time. He was with us one of the last times he was with us. He went out. I live in Hampton, Virginia. There's a fort called Fort Monroe. He was out there fishing, and a guy from the from our newspaper took this picture of him. And I have had this picture framed in my office for years. Anyway, I figured, hey, I'm going to throw that old photograph, it's actually a photograph of a newspaper clipping. I don't have the real photograph, but I threw that into this thing and I traced it. And it turned out amazing. If I turn the canvas off, again, it did a fantastic job of tracing imagery. And now I've got that in my toolbox. I can use that anytime I want. It makes my life so much easier. I've got customers that they complained year after year that Autodesk didn't have an easy way to trace images. Now this is in beta. Project Salvador is a beta tool at the moment. So I don't know what its future impact or the way it's going to hopefully integrate into the tool eventually, but definitely it impressed me, and I'm sure it'll impress you. Go check that one out. That one's worth checking out. It really is. All right, I need to get back over into my PowerPoint and I need to jump back into it there. All right, so I want to start finishing up here. All right, so how do you keep up with all of this new technology? All right, how do you do it? I think about it. It changes every day. I have a few tips. All right, so I'm going to share with you what I do. I've got a few people I follow, and that can be following them on whatever platform you want to follow them. But take the second and click the bell to ensure that new content comes to you and you get that instant notification. Force yourself to do that. I love YouTube. I'm on YouTube a lot. So when I find a YouTube video like that Project Salvador video, you know, I immediately followed the person that generated that. But you should be, whether you use Fusion or not, I hope you're subscribed to the Fusion YouTube channel. You need to keep up with what's going on over there. You really do. You can't afford to fall too far behind because sometimes that gap is, you just fall so far behind, it's almost impossible to overcome. But again, in YouTube, hit the bell. Look for your immediate updates and alerts. Subscribe. That, that gets you, the algorithm will start putting those videos up at the top. I can't tell you how many times I hop into YouTube to watch something fun. And then I end up spending 30, 40 minutes watching a new feature that's introduced in Fusion or Inventor or even AutoCAD. You've got to be proactive and set up your notifications and your, I would say notifications, set up your notifications so that they warn you or notify you when new stuff is generated by certain people or channels. Do searches, all right? Get in there and look at AI in manufacturing, AI in making. Start looking for makers online, see how they're doing it. Look at 3D printing. You might not 3D print, but you need to keep an eye on 3D printing, and especially AI in 3D printing, AI in CNC, AI in imagery. A lot of us just like that sign. A lot of us are playing around with AI and the imagery, but how do I get that over into my CAD application so I can make that sign? Don't just focus on manufacturing. Look at other industries and how the other disciplines are leveraging AI. There is a lot of stuff that'll bleed through, and you'll learn a lot, but you also might get to take advantage of a lot of things that are available. Coming up on my time here, so you need to start looking for AI-specific hands-on training. Now, that might be just adopting or taking a look at somebody's software and using it for, the trial period. That might be how you get your hands on it. You might look at some of these videos and then force yourself to go through and reproduce. That's how I learned that Project Salvador. Again, watch the video, and you're going to want to download it and do exactly what that person did. And then once you do, then you are doing it yourself. And I think good training is like that. You learn more by doing it yourself. I'll finish up with this, all right? The last time I taught the AI webinar for Fusion, I called myself an AutoCAD old fart. And I had the AutoCAD old fart card. And I talked about how, I don't know that I buy into a lot of this AI newfangled way of doing things. All right. I'm an older guy. I've been doing this stuff for a long time. And I mentioned before, change is hard. But that's not an excuse anymore. All right. Now I'm starting to realize I'm an inventor old fart. 26 years working inside of Inventor. I told you I might not like to change. Change is hard. I might have a resistance to that, but you can't afford that anymore. All right. You need to embrace these new ideas like AI. You need to embrace these new workflows. You need to at least know about them so they don't take you unaware. It's no longer a matter of if AI is going to impact your design life. It's a certainty at this point. And I'll leave you with the question, are you ready? All right. If you got questions about training, right? Maybe you want to access, you want to work with IMAGINiT, take advantage of some of the update training classes I'm putting together. you guys know where to get us. We'll be glad to help you out and set up a training class that'll work for you. We've got some amazing training offerings available. But certainly, I want to thank you guys for being here today, giving me 45 minutes of your time. I know how busy your schedules are. So listen, I hope all of you found something in this presentation that you can take away and start incorporating into your daily life. So thank you, guys.